So, hi everyone. Uh, I should have counted. Welcome to our. No problem, Jen. This is probably our ninth meeting or our 10th meeting. I should have counted, but we are so far along in our seal of sustainability, which is really lovely. So, I was hoping to actually open with announcements because it's been so exciting uh, just for anyone that's been following the email, like the group email thread, just this week, there have been so many announcements of different events, and like it made my week to see everything. So I just wanted to give space for people to plug what they're doing, maybe just a few sentences, and I'm gonna bring everything together and try to put it in one email. But I just thought it'd be super fun to open up with that. So does anyone want to make announcements and pitch events that are coming up in the next 2 months that even if you shared it on the thread?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Sharet Sedek is having a sustainable Shabbat for Tu B'Shvat. It'll be the Shabbat just before Tu B'Shvat. We bounced back and forth about doing it on Tu B'Shvat or just doing Shabbat dinner. We decided it was just easier to do a Shabbat dinner. We're getting it's all locally sourced vegan ingredients being cooked by Kosher Experience. Bruce, I don't know if you're familiar with them out here, but the chef is like a classically trained chef, and everything they do is vegan. They've got a vegan food truck, and the food is quite good. So I'm glad that we have that resource. And then after dinner, we're going to be having a panel of community members who work in sustainability and environmentalism, talk about what they do, and then there's going to be a connection that the rabbi is doing between the Parsha and Tu B'Shvat and sustainability in Judaism, and really just kind of why we as Jews it's important to us.
Cool. Thanks, Ariel. Anyone else want to plug anything? Sure, Dar. Yeah. And why don't you tell us where you're from? Because I don't think anyone else here has met you.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me. So I see Danica also here. So I'm working at VTT, and I have a new role this year. So I'm kind of like in charge also on the big events of the school, with other things. But that is the purpose for now for this meeting. So it's my first meeting here. I don't know how. I just heard that yours like ninth already. So wow. Good for you. I hear a lot of things from Danica from this meeting, so it's like amazing to hear what's going on around. So for us, we at the school. So I don't know if you know, but it's like a big school. So we have almost 500 students. So we're going to for Tu B'Shvat, we're going to K between K till grade 7. We're going to have a planting day, so it's on Tu B'Shvat, but we're going to do it at school. We collab with Mike Sachs from the JNF, so he will come in, talk about basically Hula Valley that in the north in Israel, and there is like special area there with like the trees and stuff that what can grow there and what cannot and why. So we'll talk about that, and then we're basically going to plant. Basically, we started with making the planter with recycled material and actually special paper that in the end they can actual plant later on, like when they take it home. So it's kind of like special paper that we order. And we're going to kind of like think, in my opinion, think few steps like ahead, so we could plant parsley that we will use later on for Passover. So that's the idea. It's kind of like they're planning, they will see it grow for the next like 6-7 weeks, and then they will actually eat it. So that is one thing. And then we have celebration of learning. That means when parents coming in the building. So grade 3 took over the Tu B'Shvat, and they're going to have like morning with parents explaining about different things that they learn during about Tu B'Shvat with the parents, and then like the Tu B'Shvat Seder that will happen with parents also. So that is in this area. That's what's going to happen in our school.
Amazing.
Cool.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else have community events they want to plug?
Then Helen, why don't you go first and then I'll follow you.
Great.
Okay, sounds good, Shelley. I'm Helen Mann from the White Rock South Surrey Jewish Community Center. We are planning a Tu B'Shvat Strengthen Our Roots fundraising gala, which is February 5th. So it is to celebrate Tu B'Shvat and we'll be acknowledging the holiday. It's actually now a UN Interfaith Harmony Week event, which is really exciting for our community. So we'll be able to kind of talk about how it's our very own green holiday and what it means to us, and have a little Tu B'Shvat Seder area. We're still kind of working on planning that. We're about 2 weeks away. And that will kind of kick off our climate action learning series. So 3 weeks in February after that Tu B'Shvat event on, I actually sent out the dates to you guys in an email. But it's every Thursday for 3 weeks, and it'll be, we got a small neighborhoods grant for it. So it'll be dinner and a movie. You know, you have to feed people to get people to come to, but they're all hopeful film titles around climate action and like not, you know, everyone's dying. And this is like, they're very hopeful but educational film series. So we'll eat dinner. We're getting all vegetarian or vegan options, and then eat dinner kind of while we're watching, and then have a 30-minute discussion after with community members as to what we learned and any action items we want to take away. And then the 4th week, which is March 2nd, in conjunction with our Rosh Chodesh book club, we're hosting an author Q&A with Seth Klein, who's the author of Bruce, can you help me with it? I think it's called Mobilizing the Good War, Mobilizing Canada in the Climate Emergency. So that's open to the community. It's only $18 for non-members for tickets, which I think is like a pretty low accessible price, and for such a great speaker. So he'll be having a Q&A about that. And then fun fact is those that attend the film series are considered our green team, and they'll be able to have like a private small dinner with Seth Klein before his Q&A, where we'll have a catered dinner and we'll have like a round table and discuss with him our ideas that we learned from the film series to have our Tikkun Olam climate action project that's going to take place over the summer. So I'm hoping to get a grant to hire through the BC government, like a student, to kind of be the project manager of the climate action project in the summer. That's my goal. And we don't know what we'll come up with yet for our climate action plan, but we did have a really successful frock swap back in, oh gosh, when was that? A few months back. And so a whole group of volunteers decided to do another one. So we're going to do a Passover frock swap and like Passover market in the spring as well. And I think that's everything. Our Hebrew school is doing also the cute idea, Dara, that you shared with the planting parsley seeds now, so that they'll have parsley plants for Passover. So that's fun as well. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Amazing. Amazing, Helen. Shelley, you want to share what the Federation's up to?
That's a hard act to follow, Helen. Our young adult, both our Access and our Ben Gurion Society young adults are collaborating with the National Council on Jewish Women to do an event on January 26th. It's called Swap for Sustainability. There's a speaker who's very involved in talking about the negative impacts of fast fashion. And everybody, there's the, instead of an admission fee, people have been asked to bring 5 clothing items that are usable. There'll be a swap of clothing, and then the unswapped clothes, I guess, will be donated to an organization called Dress for Success, which helps low-income women have proper clothing for job interviews and things like that. So we've got 30 people registered for the event. It's at the Van Dusen, and we're hoping, I think the goal is to try to get 50. So.
Amazing.
Shelley, can I ask a question about that? Is that, I know it said young adults. Would I be able to advertise that to high school students?
People 25 to 45.
Okay, so not high school.
Oh, well, I'll ask, I think maybe grade 12s, it could be fine. Yeah, let me check with, I don't know if the clothes would be their styles, but sure, let me just check and I'll get back to you.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm going to do a quick plug on behalf of JFS because I see Danielle's having trouble connecting. And Danica wanted to share something. I know she has to get off in a few minutes, so I want to pivot to that. But JFS is doing 2 events. One was sent out like a request for collaboration on a movie night fundraiser, and I know Helen, you responded to that. And I'll like I said, I'll put all that in an email. And also, information has not gone out about it, but they have a regular retreat called the Moshe Retreat, which actually becomes I think it's a 6 or a 9 month long program on food justice, climate change. And it's specifically for young adults also. So I think it's like 19 to 40. And they specifically want to recruit a handful of people from our cohort. So they're actually trying to reserve a few slots. So anyone that knows of people in that range in your organizations, whether it's staff, work with, definitely Hillel's like very much in that range. I'll forward along, and it seems like a really great opportunity. And there's a retreat that starts it off. Actually, some of you met Becky at last year, who is actually helping out and doing some programming there. So they'll be doing that. So really exciting. I'm sure there's even more. One more thing, last month, we had asked people to submit just like suggestions on ways to reduce waste. And actually Danica submitted one for a caterer that I hadn't heard anyone mention yet, the Perfect Bite. So I want to share that they're also another sustainable vegetarian kosher caterer. The Moshe Retreat is a 3-day weekend retreat. It's actually the weekend before we're having an in-person celebration. I think it's like March 17th or the 9th. And I'll plug that just in a second after we go to Danica to give Danica some space. They've been doing really amazing work at VTT on reducing waste. And I just want to give you some space to share about what's going on over there.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You can hear me okay? As you can see, I'm in my car driving to go pick up my kids. So I just pulled over so I'd be safe. But I've been listening to everything, and it's just really exciting. Like you said, Bruce, all of the events that are happening that are focused around environment, sustainability, and regeneration. I love this sustainable clothing swap that's happening soon for the young adults. I was really excited when I saw it was 20 to 45-year-olds. I thought, oh, I'm still considered a young adult. That's exciting, just barely. But yeah, just so much amazing work going on out there. So I wanted to share just a few things that our school is doing. So I'm at the same school as DAR. It's Vancouver Tomatora over on Oaken 26 in Vancouver. One of the things we've been doing with our student green club is I had an organization called Element Society. They are actually funded by the city of Vancouver, and they have come in to do 4 free zero waste workshops. So I'm not absolutely positive if they do them outside of the school setting. I know many of you are in different organizations that aren't necessarily schools, but it's really worth looking into if you're looking for some free workshops. I couldn't actually believe that they were free, and they're all focused on waste management. And so far, we've had 2 of them so far, and they've been fantastic. The information, I would say, is relatively basic and simple to start, but if you're looking to educate the people in your organization to get them on board with understanding what climate solutions are all about, I thought this was a really nice way to start. And so that's our student green team right now is doing that. Our goal with our student green team is to at some point get to litterless lunches. So we want to start introducing this idea of litterless waste-free lunches. And when we talk about waste-free, we don't necessarily mean like natural waste would be acceptable, but not waste that goes right into the garbage. We want to introduce this into our school, slowly doing a monthly litterless lunch in February, March, April, May, June. And then we're really hoping, and Dar, you have to keep this completely sealed because nobody else knows this, but we're really hoping actually to introduce completely litterless lunches to the community, the entire school next year. So asking parents to send only litterless lunches, and if they do send any packaged garbage, that it actually goes back into the lunch kit back home to reduce our waste at school. So that's a big one. We're just slowly planting seeds to get there.
Danica, there's a question in the chat that you might not be able to see. Are the zero waste workshops given by the city?
So no, they're funded by the city, but it's given by a company, and I can actually put it in the chat once I finish talking. The organization's called Elements Society, and they're called Zero Waste Workshops. So if you go to their website, Elements Society, and you'll see the Zero Waste Workshops, and you can look into the details there. And I can also pop it in the chat. And then the last thing I wanted to share that we've implemented so far this year is near zero waste staff meetings. The reason I call it near zero is because we're not quite at the zero waste, but we're really moving in a better direction. All the staff meetings we have monthly, we ask our staff to bring their own cup, bowl, and cutlery, depending on what we're serving, and we're not providing any alternative options. So if you forget, you either don't eat, or you use your hands, or you get creative. And that's actually been fairly successful so far. And then we've also introduced this concept into our after-school care program called Bite. And so the students have been asked to pack, or parents have been asked to pack an extra little bowl or cup into the students' lunch for after-school program. And instead of buying individually packaged items, they're buying things like fruit and baked goods that they can split up and then put in the cup or plate and give to students and not have so much waste. So some small changes, but slowly over time, I think making a bigger impact.
So before we move forward, I love like everyone just like take a breath and just like hear everything that's happening. It's super, super exciting. And you said like small changes, but all this stuff adds up, especially since we're all doing it. So yeah, like we're not quite there at the end, but it already feels like there's so much momentum gathering. So anyone else want to plug anything?
I will.
Jen.
Hi. So we do a few things for Tu B'Shvat in our EC department, but the one new thing that we're adding as a JCC this year, and the intention is to also invite community members and other communal organizations, is we're doing a shoreline cleanup at one of our local beaches to do our part to help it all clean.
Very cool. And Danielle, just so you know, I did plug both of your events at JFS while you were trying to connect, because I wasn't sure if you're going to make it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I had a problem with my computer. It froze every time I logged into the Zoom meeting. So I didn't get many response about this email, and I would like to know if anybody's into pulling up this project for having.
I believe Helen is interested. I think she sent a reply maybe a day or two ago. So you might have a partner in crime over there.
Okay, and Helen, you're from which?
I'm from the White Rocks House Area Jewish Community Center. I responded to you. To that email.
Okay, so you're from South Story. Yeah. But
we're willing to come to the meeting and discuss kind of what your needs are and what you kind of envision for support in it, for sure.
Yeah, no, but we need, if we want to sell 380 tickets, we need more organizations stepping in and have it as a, if not, we'll do a small event just for our clients. So I thought that maybe the JCC will join, or one of the synagogues, but if you're not interested, just send me an email that you're not, because we're waiting to see who's responding. So I don't know.
I will bump that request up in my roundup email, just so it kind of comes back around to people's mailboxes again.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. By the way, I do strongly recommend you to watch both of the movies that I shared the link to there. So even if you're not just for yourself, it's
Great.
yeah. I'm meeting meeting also tomorrow with somebody who worked with SPEC in Vancouver, and he's all about zero waste. So I'm meeting with him to see if we can bring him over to educate our colleagues about not less recycling, more reducing. So I'll know after tomorrow if it's something we can share, and if it's working and it's a good thing, I'll share it with all of you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Danielle. Just two more things. So an email went out a few weeks ago about our in-person celebration. We have a date. It's March 26th, so please mark your calendars. It's a Sunday. More details about like where and the exact times will go out. It'll probably be more like a late morning, early afternoon thing, I imagine. But mark your calendars, and we are building out the agenda. And if there are any speakers that jump out to you that you'd love for us to consider bringing in, share it now or shoot me an email. I've already heard some recommendations. Some names have come up twice or three times, but yeah, or even like put in the chat. So if there's anyone you really want to hear from, ideally in the environmental climate space, and probably local to Vancouver, let me know and we will see if we could get them to come.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was like, that you'd be the third person, but Helen's the second person to say Sephora Perman. Cool. And the last thing is we are coming up towards the end of our certification. So that means a few things. Means I'm going to be kind of updating my records over the next few weeks just to check in. And I think I met with just about everyone. There might be one site that I haven't had a chance to connect with. And it seems like everyone's on track to get their seals, like the certification by the end of the year. So the rest of it's just administrative. So I'll be checking in just to make sure all the records are correct. And I might ask some of you to, submit some things to the portal. But if you're working on projects and you want to get them in before the end of certification, which is really until our in-person celebration, though if it comes in too late, I need some time to print out and make your certifications. Just try to wrap up your projects, right? This is kind of like wrapping up and thinking about the next year time. And if there's any challenges, of course, just let me know and we could talk and we could work some things through. So that's kind of it for our announcements, updates portion, which delightfully went longer than I thought, in a really good way because there's so much to talk about. What I was hoping to do for the rest of this is to kind of pause and slow down the pace. It is Tu B'Shvat. I don't know if anyone's heard about Tu B'Shvat, but it's coming up. And it seems to be the time of year when people want to suddenly talk about Judaism and the environment. So what I was hoping to do was a few things. One was just open up a conversation. Thanks, Danica. Thank you for sharing, and thanks for actually making it work from your car to share what's going on. So one, just to share about like, what are we up to? Maybe even create some space for people to do some planning. I know Shira, like you suddenly have to like work on a project. So what I thought might be nice would to be of a general conversation about creating Jewish environmental programs, right? Because hopefully we're not just doing it this time of year, even though people suddenly remember that Jews do environmental things this time of year. And we could use Tu B'Shvat to, as a way in. So I wanted to pause for a second, and I opened up with a song, and I'd love for you, I'm going to put it back on, and you could turn your camera off if you want. And I'd love for you it's a nigun, a wordless melody, and close your eyes, leave them open, and just sing along with it, and just kind of observe what your experience is of this song. So, of course, let me know if you have trouble hearing.
Yedidai
So I'm wondering, I don't know if anyone sang along and kind of did their own singing with the Nigun, but I guess, what was your experience of either just slowing down and listening to it or singing along? Did you notice just anything change in your body or just in your mind? And just like come off mute. We could kind of have an open conversation.
Very grounding.
Yeah. I know for me, I suddenly become aware of my body, right? So like beforehand, I'm kind of worried, like, how is the agenda of this meeting gonna go? Are things gonna go well? And just like after slowing down, I kind of get more into my body and there's a more connectedness, even though we're virtual for me. Yeah, Eleanor.
No, I don't know the piece, and I'm sorry if I missed what you said. It sounds to me African inspired, and so it makes me think of humanity, cooperation, our place in collaboration with other peoples.
Amazing. So I did not say the piece. The piece is by Batya Levine. It's called Tu B'Shvat. It's a nigun, it's a modern Jewish wordless melody. And often Jewish environmental programs tend to open with music. It's actually a very big part of the culture. So I would say an adult program would often open with a nigun, but there's no reason why one couldn't do that with a children's program. One other question I have is, if we were about to enter into a learning together, how do you think your experience of learning after either listening to that or singing with others would change as a result of opening that versus just jumping right into conversation?
I think it would kind of make you internalize what you were learning a little more, because it's kind of an introspective music piece.
I think these sorts of like these extra sort of ritualizations of learning experiences remind us that it's not just about receiving the knowledge, it's about the communal experience that you have together.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Yeah, please do use that, Shira. Absolutely. I'm hoping by the end of this session, you'll have a program built. That was one of my personal goals. And one of the other things, so there's going to be a worksheet later on that I'll share. There might be some more kid-friendly songs. There's a really fun one that I found called the Tree Song. That's really great for young kids, right? Just to get them really amped up. But the experience, right? Like centering on learning around some kind of a shared experience is really a core idea in in environmental education in general, and as well as in Jewish environmental education. And a lot of times when we talk about programming and teaching, I think exactly you just said, the idea goes to like, what's the knowledge I'm going to impart? But that doesn't necessarily always translate into a deeper understanding or me comprehending the concepts. So what I was hoping to do with our short time is to quickly go through an extremely simplified framework. Like if I had to build a program in 5 minutes, how would I go about doing it? And what are some ways I think about it? Specifically a Jewish environmental program. And we did run a bit longer in the earlier part, but maybe we could even workshop a program, maybe a program that's gonna be run at King David Jewish High School. And like I have a little worksheet for that. So I'm gonna share my screen just because I find it easier to follow along with these things, but feel free to interrupt me at any point along the way. So, okay, great. So just for this, and this isn't a pedagogic theory class, this isn't a class for educators, this is really just a high level, because what I didn't say is, what they didn't tell you when you formed or joined your green team is that a lot of times people just assume like, oh, you know everything about the environment, how to teach about it, how to talk about it, and we're often looked to bring this experience to our synagogues, our communities, wherever we. So I wanted to just create some space to empower us all to do that. So the first step is to think about, why am I doing this? And I'd love to hear, just when someone says, hey, can you teach about the environment? What are some things that come to your mind immediately? Like, why would I do this? Just kind of gut reactions. And feel free to put in the chat if you don't want to, share out loud, but I'd love to hear what some people. I mean, my go-to is, oh my God, the world's on fire and we have to get the people to do something differently, right? Like that's my one of like my whys.
Definitely climate anxiety for me.
Climate anxiety is often one. And any others? We put that one over there. That's a very common one. Yeah, Eleanor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, because everybody's images have disappeared from my screens, but anyway, I may have to come in again. I think in terms of expanding the number of people who are involved in this great project of saving the planet, it really is about expanding the campaign, as it were. So it's very positive for me. That's what it is.
Yeah, right. Like building community of and really deepen that connection. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on why we might do this?
I think there's like a lot of misinformation out there. So just kind of like set the record straight and.
I think for the future and for like my children, like not only do I want a healthy world for them to live in, but I also want to set a good example, like as a mother for them, of how I live in the world. That requires me to like actually do good things.
Yeah. I'm going to throw in one of my favorites that we often don't think about as environmentalists, just to cultivate a love of the natural world, right? To cultivate the experience of just being a creature amongst other creatures. And often that why is one of the primary goals of just general environmental education. And when our work is so much about like repairing and trying to fix things, we often put that on the back burner. But usually cultivating that love and building that relationship leads to all these other outcomes. So I wanted to start with why, because if we take the time to just say why we're doing it, that's like half the battle, because then we get to actually shape it, and we get to maybe even check, am I coming from a less empowered context? If my context is, oh my God, I have climate anxiety, let's try to, that we usually start in a place of fear, and it might not be joyful, right? Like, how do we create joyful experiences? So the other, after we start with the why, is just go with a few goals. I won't I don't think we need to workshop the goals, but I did share 3 that I think just about every program I run has this, right? It's like every time we meet, I'm usually thinking about these 3 goals. As Jewish organizations, we're almost always concerned about deepening Jewish identity, cultivating a relationship with the natural world, and then influencing participant behavior in some way. And I'm keeping that super open-ended, right? It might be, I want people to eat less meat, might be a really clear call to action, but I also might want to influence people just to walk into the woods and feel at home, right? Like those are 2 things, but to be really clear, in the ideal world, how will this person behave differently? And it doesn't have to be some kind of big environmental lift. It could just be something subtle that changes. So the really simplified framework I want to offer is just to do 3 things. Well, 4 things, right? So one is identifying our why and setting goals. But if you use these same 3 goals for every program, I think you're fine. The next is to choose a call to action. And either use this as your starting point or the next one. But if you choose a call to action, work backwards of how do I get there? So if my call to action is to have people reduce their food waste, I might think about, well, what are the things connected with that that might actually build a relationship with the natural world? Well, I might want to have people think about, where does my food come from? What are all the things that go into the food? And all of a sudden this becomes about building a relationship to food beyond the supermarket to actually it coming from somewhere. So this becomes about a relationship with food that ends with a call to action. The other side is choosing a Jewish lens. Judaism is a deeply, deeply agrarian and environmental tradition, deeply. We don't always talk about it that way. Sometimes we do, depending on kind of the context. But there are so many ways to do it. And I'll give you like a little bit of a cheat sheet. But one of the ways, say, there's this lens. So like last month, we talked about Bat Hashchit, the idea of reducing our waste. And I might take that and say, okay, here's this Jewish idea. How do I want to make this relevant into people's everyday lives? And then I can work forwards and build it out. And at the end, have some kind of a call to action. So you can work in either direction. So this is all like very meta framework stuff. But once I do that, it actually gets super simple. Because all I need to do is then plan 2 or 3 activities that are going to reach those goals. So I'm just going to start there, and then we'll go through it. And I will move a bit quicker. I'm just trying to keep an eye on time. So when we create those 2 or 3 activities, this next bit is all going to be on that last stuff. I want to give you 3 ways of thinking about looking at activities. So one is depositing information, which we'll call like the traditional education model. Sit at your desk, I talk to you, you receive information, and just like a bank, I give you a deposit and I'll take it out the same thing. That's often the first place we reach, and sometimes it's super appropriate, sometimes it doesn't get us what we need. The other is to think about experience and exploration, right? So the experience of having a song, the experience of just wandering in the woods and seeing what I see. The last one is taking on an investigation and a question. So I'm going to go into each of these. And none is better than the other. It's just a way to expand how we go about bringing together our programs and activities. Oh, sorry. So if we were to think about this banking model, this depositing of information, so like a bank, information goes in. The only thing I could really expect out of that is I could retrieve in the exact same form. And we're focused on like abstract and ideas and concepts. So usually the participants are passive. The engagement tends to be very cerebral. And we connect with a few types of intelligence. And there's this idea that there are many ways of being intelligent in the world. In school, we often only value a handful, but it doesn't always speak to everyone. So for example, there's an idea of musical intelligence. So if I were to open up with a song, I'm activating people that think that way. But if I'm only talking in abstract concepts, I'm only tapping into people that could think in that way. So being able to bring in multiple ways of learning, always, you might be teaching the same concept over and over, but in different ways allows other people to learn. So people could might walk away with learning facts if they're able to absorb them, but that doesn't mean it's going to be deeply integrated into their worldview. Translated as it might not change their behavior. And it's easier to put together because the recipients are passive, and it's easier to measure the outcomes, right? Like we taught these specific concepts. And then just some quick examples. I listed a few here of what might be an example for Tu B'Shvat or for an environmental program. And what I do is I bolded the verbs of what we're doing just to give you an idea of what this is. So I hear a speaker share, very passive, I'm just listening. I learn, right? Someone's teaching to me about trees and botany and whatnot. We'll discuss the connection between, the seasons and the land. And that depends on like how active that discussion is, surveying, identifying, these kind of things that are being done to me. So the next is experience and exploration, where this is where we tend to live for environmental education. So here we're cultivating a more active relationship with the subject matter. So we're not just using our intellect, but there's multiple senses. And the experience is central. So what's challenging for us is we tend to have less control over people's experience. It's a lot, I can't just like put together a worksheet and just work off of that, right? There has to be more interactivity, but people will be able to learn in different ways. We'll be able to connect with a lot of different students. People tend to be more engaged. I don't know if people ever like sat in on any kind of a talk and just found yourself really interested, but you're still falling asleep. That's just like kind of like a part of the game. By interacting in multiple ways, we have this deeper understanding. And like I said, environmental education tends to be experiential. So I listed a few options here. So singing together, and wordless melodies, right, is this very nonverbal way of doing it that evokes that sense of community without saying a word, but there might be thematic ideas, but again, it just taps into a different part of the brain. Participating in Tu B'Shvat Seder or a sustainable community meal. And I want to lift that up, like what you shared, Ariel, from Sharet Tzedek, right? The idea that we're all communally eating something that has come locally and that someone's going to talk about that is very participatory, right? Just the act of eating together is an experience. We can make that the center. And the words are actually enhancing the experience. The only other one I'll point out is this idea of facilitating an advocacy workshop. So versus just telling people this is an important issue, but actually sitting down, the Jewish Earth Alliance used to do this. They'd say, we have this important problem. Let's sit down and have a letter writing workshop together where we all actually sit down and write the letters to our local officials. So all of a sudden, like we're actually engaging. So the last one, just check time again, great. The last one's the idea of investigating and questioning. We won't dwell too much on this, but to me, it's actually my favorite way of teaching, because we're actually, the students take complete ownership. Usually we say there is a compelling question we want to answer, and they start crafting the idea. So to give you an example, I used to teach about composting in New York City. So at the very beginning of our series, we would build a compost pile. And then throughout that, every week we would come together and they would just explore and ask questions about the compost pile and just, take measurements, excuse me, and try to get ideas. But it became this investigation, like they took real ownership over the life of this compost pile. And I was actually able to step back and just kind of ask questions, and it really became kind of their baby. So that's one idea. And there tends to be not just, this deeper understanding and ownership. We're not just having students, we have like co-conspirators. We have people that are joining in. It's like when you earn your doctorate, most of it is spent writing a dissertation. And that's when you become the expert, because you're actually driving the questioning. And for those of you that do kind of traditional Jewish text study, the Chavruta model of text study is such an amazing example bearing the tradition of how to do this. Like usually it's like, okay, there's these texts and we have questions about it. And like, let's just argue about it and really go into it. It's really effective. I mean, it's lasted thousands of years as a model of study, or hundreds. I don't have the anthropology on that. So just some examples that I have. My favorite, which I'll plug, is conducting a waste hunt in nature, right? Having students go out into wherever, pick any place, and have them pick up materials and bring them back. And then you ask them, what of these are waste? And now we're asking to apply ideas like waste from the human world into the natural world. And with some thinking and exploration, they will come to the conclusion, oh my God, there's no such thing as waste in nature. But like, it's like they're fully empowered to do that. Studying Jewish texts with an open-ended question. This is also where we could do really hyper-local things. And I think, Shira, I remember Johnny sharing about this for King David, this idea of students taking ownership over, let's say, a waste audit. Like you get a team of students together, and over a series of a few weeks, they're gonna like look at the waste being produced, and they take ownership over it. Like, where is this coming from? Where is this going? And it hits a lot of learning goals, but they're now creating something really tangible. There's value there, and like they become the experts in the area. So this doesn't have to be a school. Everyone, especially with the environment, we're all interacting in some way. So there's always something to investigate. So it's a bit of a different way of thinking about it. So I wanted to take the last few minutes, and I think we're small enough to do this collectively, to actually try to build a program together. So what I'm going to do, so we can all see each other again, I'm going to share a link to a little worksheet that we have, and we could all go into it. We just switched over to Microsoft, and I am woefully confused by it. So I'm pretty sure everyone here will be able to access this document and use it. So I just put in the chat, if you could all look at it, and we'll go on there together. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to just kind of build, it doesn't have to be a perfect program, but just to build out what can a program look like, just with this like a very simple model. And Shira, if you want to like workshop ideas, like I was actually originally going to breakout rooms, but I really feel like we could probably do this together, but just for us to get practice. So it's not like this scary thing. Like if someone says like, hey, can you teach about this Jewish environmental thing, we could do it. So up top first, I'll show you. Oh, wait. This was Google, I can figure that out, but I can't. So up top is the basic framework. I did include some resources for you to come back to, and I'll put this link later. There's some great resources on our website, an environmental education toolkit. So we have so many resources on Tu B'Shvat, including a bunch of Tu B'Shvat Seder Haggadot. I think we have 3 currently on the website, all with different themes. I just discovered today the Jewish Education Project has so many fabulous resources. Safari is always amazing just for the Jewish texts. And actually, before we dive into like kind of pulling together a thing, and we'll have less than 10 minutes to do it. So to really emphasize that we don't need a lot of time to plan something that'll be fun. Some of the most common themes, and this isn't a limit, but I just want to pull them out. Shomer Adama, this idea that we are guardians of the earth, and that's taken from chapter 2 of Genesis. Pe'ah, so in agricultural law, we're commanded to leave the corners of our fields unharvested so others can harvest from it. So the idea of leaving enough to benefit everybody, that there is enough. Tzedek, justice, like just especially when we talk about environmental justice. I won't go through all of them, but a couple I really like. Blessings. So all of the blessings are usually tied to gratitude for the food. Is very specific about like types of plants and how they grow. There's like a really deep agricultural basis there. And just the blessings in general tend to have an environmental bent to them. And the last one that I forgot to put on here is the seasonality of the religion. So just about every holiday can be tied to some kind of agricultural experience in the land of Israel, right? We're a very earth-based religion, especially in the land of Israel. See Ariel. So I just want to highlight those. And then I added some program ideas. So feel free to jump in. I'm going to delete group 2 here because we're only one group right now. So feel free to jump in. And is there like a specific Jewish lens or a call to action that people would feel compelled for us to do our quick program on? Just unmute and just like shout it out. Like, is there something you're like, yeah, I'd love to work on this?
Just like when I clicked the link to law, I had to like log in and click through a bunch of things, and then it said I need permission to access.
Oh, I'm not gonna play with that now. So what we'll do is we'll do my shared screen and I'll do all the typing. So yeah, so if anyone like what's a top like a call to action or Jewish lens, we could start from either angle. That just is speaking to you right now that you want to work on. Helen, you have one?
No, I'm just thinking.
Bruce, are you talking about a program for our workplace or?
So one of the things I want to point out is this could be applied anywhere, but this will just be a model one for us to show like we could actually build this very quickly. That we don't have like there's like a few tools that we could have. So if you want to think about it for your workplace, that's great.
Okay.
So this is like for a call to action, it's like a specific area you'd want to focus on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is there anywhere people have been feeling stumped recently? How do I talk about this with my community? An area that's been really nagging you?
Well, you know me already. I'm doing the vegan thing because I have everything there: environment, compassion, and health. So
great.
So a win-win situation.
We'll say promoting plant-rich diets, right?
Yeah.
Great. So because we want to have a Jewish lens on things, what are some lenses that we might think about how to apply to this? Like what is something that's related to it? And I'm going to go back up to this list. Is there anything that jumps out? Again, there's no wrong answer. In fact, many of these could apply, but like what's one you're like, yeah, I'd love to talk about it in that way.
Obviously, like lots of kashrut, like the fact that we have to think so much before mixing milk and meat. Like it's a very mindful way of eating and like approach to eating meat and eating dairy. That is something you could bring in.
That was amazing, right? So now we didn't even have it listed, right? But now you just said like kashrut as a mindfulness practice, right? Like that's a whole new lens. And now we get to talk about it in a different way. So with those two ideas, that our end goal is going to be promoting a plant-rich diet, and we might want to talk about it in terms of kosher laws and as it causes to be mindful. What are 3 activities we might do? And this is where it's helpful to think about those different models, right? So the first one, I might be telling people information. The second one, I'm going to be giving an experience. And the third would be like, we'll have a question we're going to investigate together. You don't have to have all 3. You could have all experiences. You could have all just imparting knowledge. You could have all investigative questions. But just like kind of like popcorn. What are some activities we might do for this program?
For me personally, like I'm kind of like into more like supporting like less factory farming and more regenerative farming, like how the animal was raised. I personally don't keep kosher, like so that's kind of how I go about it. So I've researched in BC like regenerative farms that are actually like lowering the carbon footprint and helping the environment because the animals are part of the whole ecosystem. So that's something that's important to me.
So we could say one activity would be talking about farming practices and their impacts, right? And that kind of lands in that like
Sacred Cow on that one.
We say that again.
There's a great book and documentary called The Sacred Cow that talks about that.
Amazing. Right. So yeah. So like this is like one of those talking about knowledge, right? We're giving people knowledge. Another one might be we actually like talk about using the laws of kosher laws as a practice in mindfulness, right? And like have a shared experience of mindfulness, right? It's like practice mindful eating together might be another activity. And then yeah, like
Shabbat in the forest or something.
great. And then like maybe actually like having an embodied experience in nature, or like walking through nature together. Through a forest or a farm.
Beach. Yeah.
Right? It's like actually build this relationship. So that was very quick, but now we have like the basis for a quick program, right? We might need to massage it a little more, and you know, there's certain constraints, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But kind of with all of these building blocks, it becomes a little less onerous to build out a program. And there's, like I said, there's lots of resources and there's different ideas. We could always, I'm a big fan of lovingly borrowing from others that have created lesson plans and reshaping it. So we're coming down to our last 2 minutes. Is there anything people want to share, or thoughts, inspirations for your own programs that you want to put out there?
Will you send out that document like as a Word or something like that so we can access all the links?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Cool.
And maybe one thing I'll share, so I've been brainstorming a bit for Tu B'Shvat. I'm going to do an assembly, and we're going to do a non-uniform day with students bringing in donations for, we're going to send to JNF, planting trees in Israel. And one thing we've been looking at is getting a local Vancouver Jewish-owned company that owns, it's a seed company, and we're going to try to get seeds to hand out to all the students they can take home and plant.
You can approach Village Vancouver. It's a great nonprofit, and they have lots of seeds. And also the person who's running it, he's Jewish.
Amazing.
By the way.
Amazing.
So yeah, and yeah, so I know they have a lot of seeds because I volunteered to organize their space. It was such a balagan there, so lots of seeds, lots and lots of seeds that he will be happy to give away.
Amazing. So it is 5:30. Thank you everyone. I will also hang out if people need to talk through anything with their projects. And all of these resources go out. Lovely spending the afternoon with you all.
Bruce, can I say something?
Oh, sure.